Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're grabbing our digital magnifying glass and diving headfirst into the super interesting world of memory forensics. So let me just kick this off with a question. How in the world do you catch a hacker who seems to just vanish? Someone who breaks into a system, does their damage, and then disappears without leaving a single footprint on the hard drive. It sounds like science fiction, right? But believe me, this is a very real and very tough problem for cybersecurity investigators. Well, the person we're hunting is what you might call a digital ghost. We're talking about an invisible threat that operates entirely in the shadows of a computer. See, for the longest time, malware was kind of clumsy. It was like a burglar leaving muddy footprints all over the carpet. It would write files to the hard drive, and that made it pretty easy for antivirus software to spot. But the game has changed. Today's advanced threats are way smarter. They're like ghosts that live only in the computer's short-term memory, the RAM. They never even touch the hard drive, which makes them completely invisible to most traditional scans. So if that's where the ghost lives, well, that's where our investigation has to go. The computer's RAM becomes our digital crime scene. Okay, so what exactly is RAM? The easiest way to think about it is like your computer's conscious mind. It's holding everything that's happening right this second, all your open tabs, the programs you're running, all that good stuff. But, and this is the really crucial part, it's volatile. The second you shut down your computer, poof, everything in RAM just vanishes. It's gone forever. For an investigator, that means the clock is always ticking. And this quote just nails it. This is what makes memory analysis so powerful. You're not sifting through old, cold clues after the fact. No, it's like you're a detective walking into the room while the crime is still happening. You can literally see the bad guys, the tools they're using, and you might even catch them red-handed, talking to their servers. So, just like any good detective, the very first step is to secure that crime scene. You've got to bag the evidence before it disappears for good. In the digital world, bagging the evidence means capturing what's called a memory dump. An investigator uses a special tool, like Dump It, to take a perfect, complete snapshot of everything that's currently living in RAM. This creates one big file, and that file gets taken over to a separate, safe machine for the actual analysis. And that part is super important. You do the analysis somewhere else so you don't tip off the attacker or cause any more damage to the live system. All right, so we've got our evidence bag. Now for the fun part. It's time to pull out the digital magnifying glass and actually start digging through the clues. And for that, you need a specialized toolkit. The big names in the game are frameworks like Volatility and MemProFS. Volatility is kind of the industry standard. It's this incredibly powerful command line tool. MemProFS is a bit more modern. It actually lets you mount a memory dump, just like a hard drive, which can make it way easier to browse through. So where does an investigator even begin with all this data? Well, a lot of the time you start with the basics. You just get a list of every single program or process that was running. As you scan through it, you'll see a lot of normal system stuff, but then something might just jump out at you. A process named processhider.exe? Yeah, that's a huge red flag right there. And listing the processes is really just scratching the surface. This table gives you a great feel for the investigator's toolkit, all translated into detective speak. You've got NetScan, which is basically like pulling the phone records to see who the malware was talking to. Then there's MalFind, which is like dusting for fingerprints. It looks for hidden code that's been sneakily injected into legitimate programs. And DLL List lets you see what tools each of your suspects is holding. Pretty cool, right? So you build the case, piece by piece. You found that suspicious process, right? The very next question is, okay, who was it talking to? So you run a scan of the network connections. You might see some normal traffic to Microsoft, but then, bam, you see an active, established connection to a server in, say, Reykjavik, Iceland. Now, unless you know the company does a lot of business in Iceland, that's a massive clue that something very, very wrong is going on. Okay, so you follow all these breadcrumbs, you dig deeper and deeper. What's the big payoff? What kind of smoking gun can an investigator actually find in here? A full memory analysis can uncover the entire plot. We're talking about finding malicious programs disguised as legitimate ones, finding that rogue code injected into other processes, tracing those active network connections back to the hacker's servers. You can even find the exact commands they used to launch the attack. And sometimes you hit the absolute jackpot. Encryption keys, passwords, even stolen credit cards just sitting there in memory waiting to be shipped out. It is an evidence goldmine. And all of this brings us to the final verdict. Memory forensics isn't some niche, obscure skill anymore. In today's world, it is an absolute necessity for modern cybersecurity. So why does all this matter so much? Because the bad guys have changed their tactics. They're stealthier. They're using these fileless techniques specifically to be invisible. So our methods for hunting them have to evolve too. Memory forensics is how we do that. It's the only way to shine a bright light on these digital ghosts and actually investigate crimes that might only exist for a few moments in that volatile memory. So I'll just leave you with this one last thought. In a world full of invisible threats, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's really running in your computer's memory right now?